name is Mark Wax. I will be the moderator of this event, and I am the VP of Operations with the Leadership Scholars. I would first like to introduce you to the director of the Center for Leadership here on campus. Dr. J. Barbuto, works to bring unparalleled enrichment experiences to all of you engaged students who are here today. So, Dr. J. Barbuto.
Thanks, Mark, and welcome all scholars to this exciting Leadership Scholar event. We have three amazing people, three of my favorite people in the community to come and share their wisdom and experiences with you. So I'm really looking forward to that. For those of you that are attending the Leadership Scholars program for the first time today, this is an important day for you. This is potentially a major life-changing moment for you, because what we provide you in the Leadership Scholars program is the kind of opportunities to learn, opportunities to connect, opportunities to serve. Essentially, we're providing you with an incredible leg up in your career, an incredible leg up as you journey through your academics. The Center for Leadership, what we do is we connect, develop, and serve. Everything we do finds ways to create connections, help you to develop, and give you opportunities to serve and give back. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited you're here. And I'm going to go ahead and turn things. Oh, I just tell you about our team. We have Rozy Burchett, who is our program and event specialist. Rozy's waving. Rozy is in charge of all the events of the center, and she oversees this program, the Leadership Scholars program. She supervises all of our VPs and all of the boards and makes sure that everything sort of stays on track and continues to make the impact that we are so proud that it's making. Also joining us is Danya Bari. Danya is our business and community specialist. She works with everything that the center does in the community, whether it's the services we provide to businesses, our communications with many of our board members, as well as some of our community-based programming like our television show and things like that. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn things back over to you, Mark, so that you can tell us a little bit more about the program and go ahead and get us moving so that our students can really enjoy the rest of this program. So I'm so excited. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dr. J. So absolutely, we have all these wonderful programs for you. And then we also encourage you to get involved with the Leadership Scholars. So after joining us for 3 or more events, you will receive an invitation to become a Leadership Scholar, where you can get even more involved in our mission to provide excellent leadership opportunities to all CSUF students. We have numerous ways. As you can see, we have 5 different boards. I'll just quickly go through them. Development develops and plans the interactive workshops that we offer on campus. They recently hosted a wonderful workshop on networking, where we all were treated to both knowledge and practice among ourselves. Human Resources is engaged with all areas of membership, from inviting eligible scholars to join, to awarding scholarships based on member participation. Human Resources really holds together all of the Leadership Scholars. Marketing is essential to encourage new membership and get the word out about all of the amazing and free opportunities the Center for Leadership provides for the campus community. Operations, that is what we're doing right now. We coordinate the Meet the Executives series. Our members engage directly with the executives and host the event. On campus, these events include free catering and are always super lively. If you guys remember parties, that's what these were. And finally, community outreach partners with the community to create meaningful volunteer opportunities for our members to volunteer and give back. So finally, I want to encourage everyone here to join us in our upcoming training workshop on how to inspire others through storytelling. Stories are how we connect and how we build meaningful relationships. So come and hone those skills with us on Wednesday, October 21st. Okay, so that is all of the intros, or the introduction on my end. Now we'll begin the introductions of the executives. So I'm going to pass it off to Jehu to start the introductions.
Hello, everyone. I wanted to take the time to introduce Mr. Sherman. He leads the HR function around the world, HR functions around the world as an executive vice president of HR for Ingram Micro. Mr. Sherman got his undergrad at George Washington University and his graduate degree from Cornell. His philosophy for career progression is to learn, teach, and learn, do, master, and teach. And without any further ado, I'd like to introduce y'all to Mr. Sherman.
So that is Mr. Sherman, and we are so happy to have you with us. Next to introduce is Charles Frosto.
Hello, everyone. Growing up in Washington State on his father's farm, Jay Scott learned the valuable lesson of working hard that would help him throughout his successful career. As a Chief Human Resources Officer of H&S Ventures, he has done it all from working at the Los Angeles Times to taking big risks and moving to Japan for Disney. Jay Scott has grown throughout his position and thrives in his environment of problem solving and human communication skills that bring him joy every time he goes to work. Please welcome Jay Scott.
I'll do all the clapping. There's some clapping sounds. Okay, and our final student presenter is Dayton Lee.
Excuse me, I was on mute.
Okay, yeah, now we can hear you. Okay, go ahead.
It's my honor to present Juriana Sperandio. She is the Senior Vice President of Human Resources at Ventura Foods. In this role, Juriana ensures the organization can fulfill its business priorities by supporting, developing, and empowering its employees and leaders. She oversees the company's learning and development, organizational development, and talent acquisition functions, in addition to leading a team of corporate and field human resources business partners. Prior to joining Ventura Foods, Juriana served as the Vice President of Organizational Development and Vice President of Business Unit Human Resources for JBS SA, a Brazilian company that is the world's largest processor of beef, pork, and prepared foods. Juriana holds an MBA in Human Resources Management from the University of Varzea Grande and her BS in psychology from the University of Cuiabá, both of which are in Brazil. In her free time, she enjoys spending time with her family and cooking for her family as well. And it is my honor to welcome Juriana Sperandio.
Okay, thank you so much, Dayton, for that wonderful introduction. So now we are going to begin our Q&A session with our executives. As kind of customary with these events, we begin with sort of introductory questions, and then we're going to do more specific questions focused on the topic of navigating your career. For all the students who are here, I really do encourage you, for when you hear something that you're interested in or you want more information, just jot down a question. And then at the end of the Q&A session, we're going to break out into breakout rooms with each executive basically in a smaller breakout room. So you can ask all of your questions at that time. Okay, so let's begin with our very first question. And I guess I will send it off to Mr. Sherman first. So, but these questions are for everybody. What was your first job after college?
Okay, so first, you cannot call me Mr. Sherman anymore.
Oh,
that's
okay.
done with, right? That just
Deal.
You could call Jay Scott Mr. Scott, but then I'll just think you're talking to me anyhow. So just stop that.
Okay.
All right. So my first job after college actually was working for the fraternity that I was in during college. So I had applied to Cornell for grad school and didn't get in, which was a crushing blow, not to get in the first time. And so I went to work for the fraternity that I was in, traveling around the United States, starting new fraternity chapters. Really, it was traveling around the United States and getting to see the United States. And I will always remember that was the most valuable $12,500 I ever earned in a year of work.
Oh, wow. Awesome. I'm going to then pass this question off to Mr. Scott or Jay. How would you be, what's your preference?
I think Mr. Sherman would be good. No, Jay
Sure.
is fine, but you'll confuse me with Jay Barbuto, so I know it's a confusing thing with two first names I have.
Okay.
Anyway,
Mr. Scott will be yeah, good.
I always look for my dad when you say that. But
Oh,
my first job out of college was actually, I was able to get that through the College Placement Center. I went to Washington State University, and I was recruited by Hilton Hotel Corporation. So they brought me down to Southern California, my second time I'd ever been here. I'd been here like I was 12. So I literally drove my Volkswagen for 24 hours almost to Southern California. And I was in what they called the Hilton Professional Development Program, which was a management training program. And it was known as HPDP. But as I found out through the program, most of the people that I worked with that weren't in the program, that had been working for Hilton for a long time, called it helpless person, dumb person. And it was true. We had no clue to what exactly I was doing, right? But tried to learn as I went along. So I was very fortunate to be in a program that was pretty structured. But HPDP or Hippy Dippy or helpless person, dumb person. But that was my first job, and probably the best $15,000. Scott, I was a couple bucks over you, that big time dollars at that point. So that was my first job.
awesome. Thank you. And then finally, how would you like to be introduced? Is it Juriana or Miss Sperandio?
Mark, whatever you can pronounce. I will start with that, right? It's rough on both. You can go by Juriana.
Okay, Juriana.
Yeah, so I think having me on those panels all make it interesting, because I'm going to bring a name of cities you probably never heard about, or campuses. Good job, Dayton, trying to pronounce it, those places where I used to live. That's not very easy, so thank you for that. My first job out of college, it was a training analyst, which it was a full-time offer after I did an internship with the same company. So it was in Brazil. I think at this point you can realize that's where I'm from. It was a retail company, like a grocery store type of business. And I did an internship starting, there's those people that come on campus and talk about those great opportunities to do an internship. And I thought that was interesting. I would learn a lot about, and I signed up for an internship. I did that part-time while I was going through college. And then when I finished college, they offered me a full-time job as a training analyst. So I really did is develop content from the grocery stores using with their employees. That was my first job.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. Our next question is, what mistake did you make during your very first years of work? So we'll start with Scott.
You know, I had to choose between a lot of mistakes when I thought about this question. But one that I candidly made for a really long time is that I thought it was all about work, and I thought it was all about career. And then I am married to my college sweetheart, and then we had kids, and I still thought it was all about work and all about career. And the mistake I learned was that was a mistake, or what I learned was that was a mistake. And it really needs to not only be about work. You need to be a more whole and fulsome person, and it needs to be about work. It needs to be about home and family and community, and it needs to be about self. Unfortunately, it took me a lot of years to figure that out. And I wish I would have known that sooner.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much. And Mr. Scott? The same question.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, similar to what Scott said, was I determined the same thing. What were my values, right? What did I really value in that end? And what you end up doing is you start to go a direction really focusing on work, and work's important, and it really is. But what do you really value, and making sure that you spend time in those areas as well, right? Easier to do when you're single, harder to do when you're married, have kids for sure, but that was one of them. And the other one for me was, you should learn it probably in kindergarten, but is to fess up when you screw up, right? You mess up, you're gonna mess up. It's okay, you say, I messed up. Don't try to cover it up, just say, take it, because most of the time, what happens after that, they're like, okay, did you learn from that? Not gonna do that again, right? This is something you should have learned, like you said, in kindergarten, but I learned that the hard way early on in my career as well, and I never did. After that, it was just like, I just took it. If you messed up, it's okay, just tell them you messed up.
Yeah, the rug gets too lumpy if you try to sweep it all under there. Juriana?
I think I'm with Scott. I had to think about each one of those mistakes I always choose to share, because I think we learn a lot, and that's to me is an important aspect that we got to learn from our own mistakes, but we'll learn from the mistakes of others too. And that's what I believe those sessions are very helpful. I think after my very first job and going through the process, I made 3 career moves very close to each other right coming out of college. So I had this opportunity to stay with a company that I did an internship, and I moved 2 or 3 times, and it was that small focus on changing the title or make a little bit more money. So it was almost like 3 moves in the first 4 years of my career. And I think if I look back today, before I make all those moves, looking for that little thing more, I should step back and think, what are the things that matter to me first, right? And I think when you make those moves so quickly, it doesn't allow you to really deep yourself in culture of the company. It's not enough time for you to learn anything. It doesn't allow you to make an impact, right? And I think I was going after something that it wasn't as important as I thought it was. Right. So, but it really, as you go in and you make your decisions, be very clear the things that are important that matter to you, and then make that drive your career. I think that's very important.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Thank you so much. Okay, our next question. What did you see yourself doing or imagining for yourself during your undergraduate years, which is the majority of us who are here are in our undergraduate education, and how did your career end up aligning with your expectations? We'll start with Scott.
All right, so mine's a little weird. So I had every intention of becoming a rabbi. And so that's what I wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to be. And I had this vision of me doing that work, and along the way, I probably wanted it too much. And then when I was told I was going to get into rabbinic school, I just didn't want it anymore. And maybe that's because I wanted it too much. Maybe that's because I was afraid about the intellect required to really be a member of the clergy, if you will. And then my girlfriend, now wife, had no interest in me working every Friday night and Saturday morning. And we thought that life would impact our ability to sort of have the life that we wanted to have. So nothing in many ways to do with HR, except then I said, okay, what are the things that I like about that type of work? Put the whole deity religion piece to the side. And I really like business. I said, oh, what's this labor relations thing? My great aunt was the first female manager of an AFL-CIO union local in New York, and maybe further than that. Actually, when she passed away, I did some research at the archives at Cornell in the labor school, and some of her writings were there. And so I worked as a union organizer in Chinatown one summer, and said, I can learn from this, but I'm not working for the union. And just wound up sticking with HR. And so I'd love to tell you it was some really well drawn out plan that I knew exactly what I was going to do, but it almost feels like it was a little bit of chutes and ladders, for those of you that know the chutes and ladders game. And at a point it became HR, and I stuck with it, but it's tangentially related to what I thought I was going to do. But I really, there's no real thought behind it or explanation, and it's curious to all of us.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say that we're disappointed to hear that. I think a lot of us who are in undergraduate school are, really faced with that, the weight of the decisions we're making, and we think they're so important. And so I think that's, really good to keep in mind. So thank you so much.
And all of you want to be a rabbi, a priest, a minister, a shaman, or something else. I get it.
Yeah. Okay, so now we will move on to Mr. Scott.
Sounds like the start of a comedy routine, right? A rabbi and walked into a bar and came out an HR person later, right? So actually in some ways similar. I thought, as Charles, when he introduced me, I grew up on a farm in Eastern Washington. My father and mother were from Iowa, and they had moved out there before I was born. Anyway, I thought I wanted to work in farming and agriculture and forestry. And my dad looks at me and says, "You don't like any of that stuff." So I said, "Okay, let me just start over kind of thing." And I got in, I took a business law class, and I went, "I really like this. This is really interesting." So I think maybe I want to be in business. So what does that mean? Similar to Scott, I wanted to be into labor collective bargaining. I had a minor in economics. I thought, collective bargaining. I took 3 or 4 classes. And I was lucky enough to, like I said, get hired by Hilton, and they had this management training program, the first person in HR. So I was in this because I knew I wanted to work with people. I mean, trees and plants are great, but I really was a people person. So I wanted to work with people. What's the best one? Okay, human resources, right? It wasn't what it is today that it was then, and it's really grown obviously as a profession. But the same kind of thing. I didn't know what I really wanted to do when I went in, and that's okay. That's okay. Start to talk to people. You start to get an idea. You start to feel where you're better at. What do I like to do? Things like that, and it'll come around. So I was fortunate that I ended up, in a career that, in a place that I really liked in that end. Although people can also drive you crazy, as I look at Juriana and Scott, right? So if you say you want to work with people, you may later on. Okay. They're complicated. We all are.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, just to be open and be open to getting excited about new things. Okay, we'll move on to Juriana.
Yeah, so I choose my major coming out of a desire to be a teacher. That's where my mom wants me to be, type of thing. So I went in psychology thinking that would be something close enough to education, knowing that was not really my passion to start with. But I fall in love in my 3rd year college with the psychology class. That's the organizational psychology. In Brazil, they call it the industrial psychology for a period of time. And it's, I think, very different than the Scott and Jay. That was probably the more objective part of the psychology classes. And I think going through all the therapy and the counseling and the clinical part of psychology that I study, I felt like I was somehow attracted to the HR side or the business tie into this. And I really fall in love. That's why when I was on my 3rd year of college, this group were coming in to talk about the HR world, and I signed up for the internship. So to me, I had clear in my mind that I want to do something that was a little bit more objective. The whole psychology, I think that I felt like that was not for me. In going to some of my coursework and I had to do clinic, I realized that people would start to share their thoughts, and I said, okay, let me tell you what you need to do, right? And that's not what a psychologist do, okay? So I felt like I gotta go in a different direction a little bit. So that's a lot of what I think through. I had this company environment, something that I dream of, and that's what I want to do, right? And I drove my career into that process. That's what I've been doing since I left college, and that's what I enjoy. I realized that I was mindset, and if you ask my mom, she probably gonna call me stubborn sometimes. But I was dead set. That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go after. And I think in my case, pay off. And I really enjoy what I do.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Our next question is kind of a fun one. And it is, what is your superpower, or your business superpower? Or if you could have any superpower, what would that be? So we'll start with Scott.
My superpower is that I have the exquisite ability to make mistakes. And it is the only thing that I have perfected, is the ability through complete fault of my own, to try really hard, think things through, and still make mistakes and not get it perfectly right, and to learn from those things. And it's one of the things I want the teams that I work with every day to get really good at. I want us to make brilliant mistakes and then learn from them. And the failure to make those mistakes is due to a failure to try. And it took me a while to realize that. So I am brilliant at screwing things up and then making them right.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Mr. Scott.
Well, I did want to fly like Superman, but since it's really probably not about that, mine probably wasn't initially a superpower and still probably isn't. I think that's overstating it, but I think this ability to adapt to changing environments, to cultures, to different bosses, companies, whatever that might be, adapt quickly in a really sincere and genuine way. And that's taken a while to develop that. That didn't happen day one, still not perfected by any means, but you know, we're all in a COVID situation. That changed a little bit, right? We're not meeting in person. So that adaptability has really helped me throughout the years. Again, it came at sometimes at a cost, and sometimes jumping out of the boat, so to speak, and taking some chances, but figuring out how to make it happen from there. So, and I didn't grow up in that environment necessarily. I grew up in the same place. I didn't have a lot of variety. I didn't move around, but my parents were in the military like other people. So I didn't have a lot of that, but it developed over time. So I guess that's my semi-superpower.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Juriana.
Yeah, I have a list of superpowers that I want to have. I could share some of those. One that I think I would call this is a superpower of mine. Is my ability to be positive about anything. I think it's something people work with me and work around me. I think they see that I can laugh at myself. I can laugh at people around me. I laugh at the circumstances. I have fun no matter how hard things are. Is that mental outlook of optimism. I'm a stronger believer that things are going to get better, and I work towards that. It's not like I just sit here and wait for things to get better, but it's just to understand life is not perfect, and things weird will happen, things that you didn't plan. I mean, this year it's full of examples of that, right? But it's the ability that you can have the optimism. Oh, this shall too pass and something else will happen, but it's that optimism. I think that's what gives you hope every day. It makes you wake up and try something different, and so that's important. But one superpower that I want to have that I need to share is that extreme endurance, right? Because I mean, have a full-time job, being a mom, and have a husband, and manage a wife, and try to work in your professional development and work out and all those things. I mean, I wish I have this unending endurance so that I can do everything that I want, that I can, and don't get exhausted, right? So I really would love to someone have that superpower to share some with me.
I think based off of a lot of self-help books, I think a lot of us are wishing for those, super endurance superpowers. Our next question is, what effective habit do you have now that you wish that you had adopted earlier? And we'll start with Scott.
So I would say that I think you see it actually in the three of us, where if you think about just what you think business is, you think that it is this place of serious intensity. You think that it's always serious. And I was serious when I started out my career. Like many of you, I was first generation university student, and even though they never asked me to, I was out this to prove this for my family. And I was the oldest kid, and I was the first one that really got to go and graduate from university. And darn it, I was going to prove that I was really good at whatever it is that I was doing. And along the way, I realized that seriousness wasn't necessary, and that what you had to be is more just who you are. Now, there are folks that are serious by nature, and they should be serious. And I had been very serious and really stressed about it when I was in university, because where was I going to get the money to finish and all that. And I realized along the way that I could just love what I do and the people I do it with and have fun at work every day. And I could just have fun. And so I tend to be a little goofier than most senior HR people or senior leaders. And it's just, I'm authentically who I am. And like Jay said, and as his superpower is this ability, I think especially of good HR people, to moderate their style depending on their audiences, but never their values, is really important. A woman who I worked for who ran HR for Medtronic for many years, Jana Fiola, who studied as a nun, one day told me that that's one of the things that the organization liked about me, was the ability to do that, and I never realized I was doing it. And I wish I had just known that sooner. And I can be funny if you think that it's funny, and serious at the same time. And I think there's a level of humanity there that helps all of us in business, because at the end of the day, what we want is to have trusting relationships, to build something more productive and positive, and to help people go home at the end of the day with more pride, more contentment than they had at the beginning of the day. So that would be the habit. I wish I had learned it sooner.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Scott.
That's why I like Scott so much, because I do the same thing. I can't keep a serious thought for a long time. It jumps in the other way. So we used to laugh at Disney. I worked at Disney, right, for almost 15 years. And sometimes we'd have this meeting and I'd look around the room and I'd go, listen, people, can we have a little fun? We work for Mickey Mouse. If we walk outside these doors, people are enjoying themselves running around the park, and we're sitting here, you know, digging through stuff and not having fun. I used to take my staff and we're going out in the park right now. Drop your stuff. We're walking out in the park. We're going to go sit down in Frontierland or wherever and watch people, because you just need to have that. So it's not really a habit, I guess, but it is to you know, and not take yourself too seriously, right? But I think one of the other things was for me was figuring out how to be more responsive from a habit standpoint. And I wasn't really focused. I got my degree, yes, I figured things out, but I figured out that if you don't have responsiveness and some focus and plans, your people aren't going to trust you at some point either. So you got to just kind of develop that habit. And again, we developed at Disney, came up with what's called the Franklin Planner. Now it's Franklin Covey, and it's all this planning, there's values in it and stuff, but that helped me immensely. And that was halfway through my career, because my boss said, you're not making anybody happier because you're just too distracted. So I know you guys are probably more organized than I was in college, because you're going to school and you're working, you're doing those things, but that is still pretty important. But I love what Scott said. Have fun, and also be yourself. Be who you are. Yes, adjust. Yes, that thing, but you are who you are. And if you try to fake that for a long time, you're going to fail. You're not going to be able to do it, one, and it's going to come across eventually that you're not really who you are and say you are. So be who you are. It's okay. If you're quiet, be quiet in that. And you know, don't try to be like the next person in the room. Be who you are. And if they don't like you before that, okay, you're going to move on to a greater job. That's how I look at it.
Yes, awesome. Okay, Juriana.
Yeah, I think I think Scott and Jay brought up two very, very good points. And I think an habit is a thing you develop and you change depending your learners in life and things like that, and adapt it to what you're going through and environment you are as well. One of the things that I think I've been focused a lot of, it's insight a couple of years ago that it helped me, get me grounded. It's everything I do, I try to go back to start with the why. There's a book about that, or you can go to the 7 habits and think about, you know, begin with the end in mind, whatever. But even the simple things at home or at school, at work, think about why. Right? Usually it gives you enough information, the rationale about why you need to do right? So it's a simple task that we have to do, but think about that. And to me, it helped me get out of the weeds. It helped me to a lot of times not get involved in things that doesn't matter, that's not a priority. It helps in organizations you to get out of, oh, we always done like that. Which is a big pitfall. So it really talks why we do this, why this is important. And I think as everybody knows, when we're committed with something, when you're engaged, it's because you know the full story, right? It's so it's so important. It's such a simple thing, but you can imagine how much human beings go into autopilot in the things. We do things because we did before, or we did someone else told us so to do, and we keep on that automatic mindset. So I think if you develop the habit, and this is helping me a lot, why we do this to start with, right? And if you're moving into a new role or a new job or a new course, just take the time to ask those questions. It gives you a perspective. It gives you an opportunity to do something different, to try something different. It's extremely helpful. So it's something that I've been using a lot.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to start with navigating your career questions. Our first one is, what adversities did you overcome that helped you or helped to define who you are today? And I'm going to kind of mix it up now, and let's start with Juriana.
I would say move from Brazil to US and an expatriation process about 13 years ago without speaking a word of English. I think you can call that an adversity, okay? I never recommend that type of expatriation to anybody to do. I think, Jay, you probably can relate what living in another country looks like. So to me, it's not just the language, it's the cultural aspect, it's the fact that, hey, I was an HR leader in Brazil. I was doing well. I thought this international opportunity would be something interesting to go and try it out for a few years. And then I would go back. And 13 years later, I'm still here. So to me, the big learn is through this process is yes, you have to have a plan, believe me, but be prepared to change your plan. And in life, we're gonna throw you things at times that you did not expect. And as long as you are able to cope with that and overcome those things, and learning English, I still talk about it. I can communicate in English, but I don't feel like I learn English yet, right? And I learn that every day with my kids. They grew up in US and they say things that I was kind of, what? Right? So it's that journey for me to continue to learn. And my team here at Ventura Foods, they also keep my Jurianisms, which is a list of the things that I say, that I change slangs, I change the way things work, and it's just fun. We can laugh about those things. But in the end of the day, that if I wouldn't take that step of, let me try something different and get out of my comfort zone. And some of you may think that's maybe too much out of your comfort zone. I don't think I would be the leader that I am. I think the level of the empathy I have because I live in different country, because I had the experience, because I know what it looks like when you don't understand what people is talking. I had to learn compliance and legislation from US, which is completely different. And so again, all those things, in the end of the day, if I look back and I think, did I want to do that? Probably. It was cool. I don't think I really know what I was going, but boy, I would do everything again. It really built who I am today, and I'm proud of that. So I'll definitely encourage anybody to take anything that takes you out of your comfort zone. You can't imagine how much you can learn.
Awesome advice. Thank you. We'll move on to Scott Sherman.
Well, I would say that Juriana brings up a great answer. We moved to Switzerland. We lived in Switzerland for a bit, and you know, I didn't speak the language, and for the first 6 months I was there by myself, which is amazing to learn when you're 40, how to be alone and lonely in a place where you just can't communicate. In fact, I would go to the same little pizza shop in the ground floor of the hotel, and after like 10 days, the man says to me, "You know, sir, you're speaking to me in Spanish, not French." I had no idea what I was doing. Like, it sounded good. It's fine. So look, you know, for me, I don't know that I want to use the word adversity. There have been some tougher learning experiences that have stuck with me a bit. And probably one of them was just, there was this period in my teenage years, my university years, where my folks were out of money and went through this really hard time financially. And, you know, we talked about going on welfare and I didn't know if I was going to be able to stay in school. And I got to stay in school because my fraternity brothers, where I was late on the rent and didn't pay my dues, ran me for vice president of the student association because they knew if I won, that it covered half my tuition, because my financial aid package stayed the same, but tuition went up a lot. And so what I learned out of that experience was this level of kindness and gratitude. I have this need through till today, to repay that kindness to people that were not involved in those kind acts. And so even when I went to grad school, the trustees of a couple of fraternity chapters who I had never met, but I'd worked for the fraternity, helped me fund going to grad school before I got funded. And so I think someone paid that forward on me, and I'm trying to pay it back and forward at the same time. And I try to do that personally, and I try to do that professionally. And people will question if, as a business person, you're for real when you do that. And I think if you are for real, you should do that. And I think those experiences have been marvelous for me. Do I wish I didn't have them? Probably. Am I thankful for having had them? Absolutely. And I know many of you, especially today and what's happening, are experiencing those same things. Head down, emotions in check sometimes, coming out at other times. There's so much opportunity that's going to be out there in front of us, even when it, for me, looked really bleak. Sorry, that was one of the times where I wasn't really where I was actually serious, but it's a valuable story. Great lessons learned and shared.
And also just hearing how adversities can then develop into gratitude. I think that was so powerful. Thank you so much. Now we're going to pass it off to Mr. Scott.
Yes, it's really interesting to hear, right, between Scott and Juriana, some similarities in ways, and similarly, Juriana mentioned it, and I said that. So when I started with Hilton, I again came to California, different culture, right, different than Washington State. I moved 5 times in 8 years with Hilton, because that's how it worked. The promotions, you got to move to this property and up here in San Francisco for a while, and then down to San Diego. And so again, figured it out, right? New place. At least they spoke generally the same language, Scott, but not so much. Then fast forward, I get this opportunity to go to Japan, and my director at the time at Disneyland was like, "Why are you doing that? I would never do that. That's crazy to do that." And I'm like, "Oh, that doesn't make me feel great about this decision that I had already made at that point, by the way." So, but that was, I had a lot of benefits because they gave us a lot of training before we got there. I had an interpreter that I worked with. I took lessons. I did the same thing, Scott. I walked in and started speaking Spanish, the only other foreign language I semi-knew, to the grocery store person who looked at me like, and my wife looked at me at that point and says, they don't understand Spanish either, so it's not going to help you. But such a funny thing. But those times, and I didn't look at it, it changed my life from a lot of ways. That experience, overcoming those challenges, and then just understanding and looking at different cultures and the way the world operates. So what your guys are going through now, what Scott mentioned in that end, and again, it'll make you better. It's hard now. All these things are hard. Like he said, I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to have to go through that first 6 months in Japan where I was like, this is really hard. Everything was hard. Got off work, going to the store. My wife got all excited to find the post office and buy a stamp and mail a letter at the time. It was like little things that you think take for granted here, right? And Juriana, I'm sure, had those experiences for sure, and so did Scott in Switzerland. So, but those things, what you guys go through now will make you better. It'll be hard, but there's opportunities out there. Keep plugging along. That's all I can say, because you look back and go, you know what? I made through that, and I learned a lot, and I'm better for it. So just keep plugging, I guess is what I keep saying, right?
Awesome, thank you. And we'll start the next question with you as well. When did you know that your career was the right fit for you? Like, when did it kind of click?
Probably last week.
Congratulations.
35 years later. I think what I did know that I wanted to work with other people and I wanted to help them to just, maybe be better, fill in the right position, help navigate their career. So, you know, I had enough good feedback from good bosses about like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing the right thing. You're responsive. You're talking to people. So, but I don't know if there was, I think early on, but I still don't know, right? Sometimes in our world of HR, especially, it's not like building a house. You don't walk away after the day and go, oh, I got that wall done. And the next day you come out and I got that wall done, right? I mean, there's times you walk away and go, I'm not really sure if I made an impact in what I did today. I hope so. I think I did, but because things are thrown at you and stuff happens and it's a lot of people stuff, so you don't always get that. So, you know, you just keep, you know, I think it's, you're getting some results, but sometimes it's not immediate. So it's really a hard thing. So like I said, I think I knew it was in the right career pretty on. And as soon as I started to get some opportunities, promotions, and that must be doing something right? At least my bosses think so. So I was fortunate.
Okay, awesome. And we'll move on to Juriana.
Yeah, I was thinking that Jay's and Scott answered even to the previous question. I always tell people around me that you wish the things, don't wish that the things are easier, right? Wish that you were better. And I think it's how we really overcome all those things. And this is so important. I think the thing click in my head that I was on the right path. I think you always heard me. I was dead set that I'm going to be in HR. But a few years after college, I felt like probably 80% of my class or my teammates in college, they all went to this clinic and they are doing counseling and therapy. And I felt like maybe I didn't see this right. And, or if everybody is developing in that side, there is a very few of my group on that class that went back in HR on the organizational psychology. So I decided to open a clinic in Brazil with a friend, and I was doing that after hours. So I still work all day in HR, and then we went through and say, hey, I think I can get some patients at evenings and things like that. But it wasn't that doubt in my mind. I think it's still about, did make the right decision or what? And I can tell you, it was probably 2-3 months in, and a few patients that I was sure that was not for me. And since then, I never tried anything else. I think it was that feeling that, hey, I enjoy so much what I do being in HR. And Jay and Scott know that it's not an easy position to be. You sometimes are being seen on the organization or more the soft side of the business, which is really not. There is not so soft about what we do at all, I'm telling you. And in most of my years in HR, it's been in the food industry, which is also not soft, right? And prior to Ventura Foods, as Dayton talked about, I was on the meat side of meat production, which is a pretty rough business in terms of volume and things like that. So to me, it's a good sign about you being on the right position is that you enjoy what you're doing and you see value. You're motivated every morning, you wake up, you want to do that. And if you're not getting that, then it's time to rethink.
Okay, wonderful. And now to Mr. Scott Sherman.
Yeah, look, I first of all, I think there are lots of, I look at it like statistics, right? There's not one very best. There's a whole lot at the 99th percentile or the 98th percentile. And it's about the work you do, it's about the place you do it, it's about the people you do it with. And so even if it's the same career in a different place, it may not feel as good. What I look for is, am I learning, right? Even today, am I learning? There's a long list of things. I was having this conversation with someone on the team earlier today about their career. There's still a long list of things I don't know or haven't yet experienced that would be great to learn or experience. And so are there still things on the list that I can learn from that place or doing this work? Do the values of the people I work with in the organization fit well with mine? Do they overlap enough that I feel good that we're doing the right thing? Do I like the people? Am I able to grow? and am I just plain happy there? There are always going to be careers where we can make more. And I'm reasonably sure there are always going to be careers where we can make less. But does what we're doing, it's a little bit of that question, do we live to work or do we work to live? And early in my career, I mentioned I lived to work and prove something out. And I wish I didn't. So am I getting what I need? So for all of you who have taken labor economics, I know how labor economists talk about work and what work is. But at the end of the day, work is mutual selfishness. And at H&S Ventures or at Ventura Foods or at Ingram Micro, the company, we all want something from you and you all want something from us. And we're trying to find this balance. And so the fit comes if the balance seems fair, right? So that's what I look for. And I really just try to have feel valued by what we're doing and how we can contribute every day.
Okay, thank you. Our next question, and we'll stay with you, Ms. Scott. Yes. What was the biggest risk that you took, and what did you learn? You know, either way, if it went well or went poorly, what did you learn from it?
Yeah, the biggest risk I ever took was doing panels with Jay Scott. Right, that was the biggest risk I ever took because he's just so darn impressive. And really adorable too. And now that this is being recorded, Jay, you've got that forever. Look, I think the risk, so if you think about career, you get your first job, but whether or not you're good at it, you're doing the right things, you're valued, is when you go from the first job to the second job, right? That's, oh, I'm starting to progress. I'm starting to show I might actually know what I'm doing, or I can convince somebody to do that. And then when you go to another company, that's really risky because they don't know you at all. And then you go work in some other culture. It's interesting that the three of us have done that. And that was a huge risk. It was a huge risk personally and professionally and for family. And I just think, and by the way, it started because I was brought up in New York and New Jersey, and the first foreign country we ever moved to was actually Texas, like 2 years into my career. And I will always remember my mother-in-law crying at the airport gate that we were taking. You know, I was the bad person taking her daughter and brand new grandchild to Texas. That moving away, sorry, this is getting long, that ability to move away and become your own person, professional, family, that is really risky and if done adequately, really valuable.
Okay, wonderful. Next we'll move to Jay Scott.
Thanks, Scott, for that and putting it in on a recording. Adorable, I think you said. I love it. So you've heard it, I think the same thing, Japan for sure, but I want to back up. I was in junior college and I had the opportunity to go sell books. You guys know what those are, actual books, papers on them, door to door. And I end up in Oklahoma for the summer. And it was a commission only. Drove my 65 Volkswagen to Nashville, Tennessee for a week of training, ended up in Oklahoma with my territory with about 6 other people. We basically lived on our own. And I lived on about $1.55 a day. I sold, the most books I sold was my first day. And I thought, well, this is going to be easy. I'm going to kick butt. Never sold that same number the rest of the time. Came home with enough money to basically fix my car and go right back into school. That was kind of the Texas experiment a little bit, but it was Oklahoma. But Japan was even that plus. But I learned back then I could make that happen. It was only 90 days, but I could do a 3-year stint in Japan. But again, that was just that whole idea of going to a different place, stepping out, and then making it in that end. Well, again, not easy, but it'll make you better. And Japan was unbelievably experimental. So great to see the world and in a different place, like we said. So that was my biggest one for sure. But Oklahoma, by the way, and they still have that. Times Mirror company sold that company off, but it's still based and they're still selling books, surprisingly enough.
All right. Juriana.
Yeah, I think Scott talked about it. I think every move that we make career-wise is very risky. We have no idea what you're going to find on the other side. To me, as I look back, definitely the expatriation process was a challenge and was a risk. I had no idea if I would like here or not, especially when you don't speak the language. But if I think about this, the decision to really join JBS, that was the company that I had prior to Ventura Foods, it's probably the bigger risk. I was, prior with them, I was an HR business partner in a telecom company. It's a big telecom company in Brazil. And it was a great job. I was doing well. I didn't have to think too hard. Everything corporate would send me in a package. So I just need to implement this all can and all that kind of stuff. And then when JBS come to my life as an opportunity, they are in a small family business at that time. It's a family from Brazil. They own this couple meat packing in Brazil, and it was an opportunity for me to have the first leadership position. And I was so attracted to be a leader in HR that it was risky. First of all, it was my first leadership position. Second is it was a completely smaller business, family owned. I had to move, I relocated from the capital of Brazil into a small city on the central west of Brazil where the cattle are. And if I had time, I'll tell you the stories of leaving a telecom business with everybody dressed as well and had ties. And here I am, the HR manager on this beef plant in the Midwest of Brazil. And the first employee that coming in is covered in blood because he was on the slaughtering side of the facility and he needs to talk with me. So it's just like, what did I do? And I think the big learning for me is don't underestimate, even when something doesn't look as shiny as it is, you had so much opportunity to add value. And I think that was a defining moment on my career to really believe that I can make an impact on what people work and how they work. And I stay on that business for 11 years. It's a company that grew a lot through acquisitions, and they acquire business that are bigger than them in US. That's how I ended up here. It's a beautiful story, and to me, it's don't be afraid to take a risk. I said that at the beginning. Don't be afraid to get out the comfort zone. Sometimes the things don't come all exactly right, but make work. And I think you got to be open to those things.
Awesome. Yeah, it sounds like everybody learned that through the risks is that you can take more and that it's good to take risks. So thank you so much. Our next question is, what skills have you found essential for success in your position and career? And we'll begin with Scott Sherman.
Yeah, let me just give you a couple quickly. So, and not in any particular order, but I think agility. And Jay mentioned that earlier. The ability to listen, and not just to listen, but for people to recognize that you're listening is a big deal. So learning how to do that. I'm sure that Juriana and Jay feel similarly. You have to learn how to make hard decisions without having all the information you want. You will never, ever have all of the information you want, which really means that what you have to do is be a really good and competent thinker. You have to understand positive and normative decision-making, things that are based on fact, things that are based on values and norms, and make good decisions. And then one that I would add is you have to be accessible. If you're gonna lead, you have to be accessible in the organization, to people in the organization, to leaders. You have to be responsive. I know, because Jay and I have known each other for a while, that if I email Jay on a Tuesday, I'll hear from Jay on Tuesday, and Jay knows if he emails me back, that accessibility, that responsiveness cannot be underappreciated. It's really important, and leaders feel like they need to be served or should be served, and they've got it wrong. And so understanding that it's about accessibility and responsiveness and decision-making, I think will Those are really essential careers, no matter what you're doing or who you're doing it with.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Jay Scott.
Yeah, it's again so amazing that the commonalities you're going to find. So yeah, responsiveness, right? I mentioned it. Scott just mentioned it. Adaptability, right? Said that. Juriana said those things. She said positive. That's a huge one for me. I love being around positive people. Negative people bring me down. My last job with Hilton was at the LA Hilton downtown, which is no more. It was one of the older Hiltons. It's got demolished, and there's a whole new, not a Hilton hotel anymore. It was the most negative place I ever worked, and I was like, my wife, after a year there, my wife came and she goes, I don't really like you very much now. And we've been married for a while. And it wasn't anything to do. It was because it was sucking the energy out. So positivity. And even as a leader, especially, you got to call it in. Now, it doesn't mean that you're rose-colored glasses. It doesn't mean you got to you can't make hard decisions because you're going to have to. But if you're this, is the boss in a good mood today thing, boy, that is hard on your people that you work with. Even coworkers, not just people that work for you. And selfless, Scott referenced that a little bit, that's for sure. You know, it's the upside down, it's being a servant leader. That's really more important nowadays. And I always say this, I heard this from somebody, I don't even remember who said it, but try to be more interested and instead of trying to be more interesting. So it's really what Scott said on listening, that same sort of thing. Try to be more interested versus trying to be more interesting. And if you do that, honestly, not on a fake thing and I'm just, oh, how you doing today? And you really don't care. That'll take you places. It really will. And whatever career, it doesn't mean HR, doesn't mean whatever. I think that's, people will see that, oh, this person does care about me. And again, it's hard to do if you have a lot of employees and you got a lot of staff, but if you just kind of keep that part in mind, I think it will it'll probably serve you well. But I think it has for me. I again learned that through the years.
Thank you. Juriana?
Yeah, there is very few things to add after what Scott and Jay said here. I think they're spot on. I think a skill that it's a must-have is the ability to learn. Just be open. I mean, we learn every single day, no matter how experienced you are on the field or in your area, you got to be open to learn. And you learn not just going to school, you learn from people interactions, you learn from your mistakes, you learn from things that you do, things that you read, right? So there is so many things that you learn. So that's extremely important. The other thing I think both of them touch on, but I strongly believe that it's an important aspect that it really help you to have the right mindset for learning is the humility. You gotta be open and let your guard down and say, I don't know this. And I think Scott talked about the humanity, right? It's the moment that you say, you know what, I don't know, let me find out. It doesn't matter each position you are, those things make you real. And guess what? Everybody knows you don't know everything, right? And there is opportunities for us to go through. So I think pride is usually at the bottom of the great mistakes. and you got to step out and put yourself and say, hey, I'm humble with who I am. That's not a show of weakness by any means, right? It's just say, hey, let me learn it from you. And that listen and the learning coming from that process for sure.
Okay, thank you so much. We are actually kind of running a little bit short on time because we do want to spend some time in those breakout rooms. So I wanted to actually ask you if there were any specific questions that you wanted to touch upon, because I know that we sent you some of the questions in advance. So feel free now to speak to any of those questions.
So I would say one thing and then I have a piece of advice. The first is the skills that every person coming out of college should have is the ability to communicate orally and in writing professionally. I understand that the reliance on spell check, by the way, still period, 2 spaces. I don't care what Microsoft says. I understand that tweeting is, the ability to communicate effectively to a variety of audiences, large and small, is really important. End of story. The second thing I would say is I start every day at 7:30 in the morning with a COVID meeting. So sometimes it's really not the start of the day, but at 7:30 every day, we meet and talk about COVID in our company. And since we started doing that, we left the office March 13th. So since we started doing that on March 16th, my wife the night before puts out a phrase, a saying, a something. And the one that she left last night for this morning's meeting is really good for this session. So if you were to take a moment to write a note to yourself today, that note should be, I'm gonna make you so proud. And so what we're all talking about today in career is making us proud in ourselves and in our accomplishments. We've all talked about more than career and about family too, because don't mistake your success. It is not only due to you, it's due to those that support you just as well. So write your note to self that you're just gonna make yourself so proud. And I would pass it over to Jay and Juriana.
All right. Juriana.
Yeah, that's great, Scott. I would go on with one advice, and I think this is something I use for myself, and I think if we all could practice that, it help. Is this notion of you have a 24 hours rule, and no matter if you're defeated or if you have a victory, use the 24 hours rule, where, you know, if you're celebrating, celebrate for 24 hours and then move on, right? But same thing if you're defeated. And believe me, life would do that with us. It did with us, and I think you can hear the stories and will help with us. It come from different circumstances, but we'll get beat down. We're gonna get things thrown our way that it make us put our head down. And it to me is the 24 hours rules is helpful for you to really process the emotion and help you to think through what you went through. But after 24 hours, move on. Learn what you have to learn, and then move on and go and do something else, right? Especially in days like we are, where the mental health is something so important. And if you start to get depressed because something went wrong, you invest in your time and your energy in things that are not helping you, right? So try to use that. It's 24 hours is the max you are allowed to be thinking about something that went wrong. After that, time to move on, get something better and move on. And believe me, it will happen. I wish I could tell you that it would be perfect for you, but it's not. So be prepared and don't struggle.
Awesome, thank you. All right, Jay Scott.
Jump in, Mark, and again, thank you, Juriana and Scott, for what you guys said, because it's great advice. So Rabbi Sherman, I was thinking about not knowing what everybody's feeling, but if you read Proverbs, for example, those would give you 30 days, 31 days, once a day of like, oh. And again, it doesn't matter what religion you might be, you will probably go, oh, that's going to help me. Because it talks about humility, and it talks about pride and how that impacts things. So just another a little word of advice. But I'm right with both what you guys said. My last thing would be a little bit of the, another skill would be to raise your hand when others maybe aren't willing to take a position, take a job, take an opportunity, take a skill, take a project. You may not feel really comfortable or confident, but if you do that, again, you'll learn from it. Your coworkers see that, your bosses will see that this person's willing to do that, to take a risk again, and it might be a small one at that point. They might not think it's a big risk. You think it's a big one, but I think that raise your hand and then get your hands dirty. We're in a place now in our companies that we have less people because of COVID or whatever it is. And we see it. Other people are like, well, I'm not going to do that. I've got my 4-year degree and a master's degree, and I've done this before. It's kind of like, you know what? This is tough times. We all got to get in. If you're not willing to get in, maybe you're not good for our company. Okay, might work someplace else and that. And so it's a willingness to, again, it's adaptability we talked about, but really get into some stuff that you may not want to do and prefer not to do, because there's always going to be that stuff that comes out in your job every day. And so, you know, again, raise your hand. So that's my last kind of thought around skill.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah, so I'm going to pass it over to Rozy, who's going to describe or get us into the breakout rooms. And then also with any of the questions that we didn't touch upon, feel free to talk to the students within the breakout rooms about that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open the breakout rooms. You guys are all assigned. There's 3 different breakout rooms. We're going to allow 15 minutes per room, and then I'm going to switch the executives so everybody gets a chance to speak with the executives. So you'll get your notification on your screen, and just go ahead and join. And feel free, you know, introduce yourself to the executives, share your name, your major, and your graduation year. Have fun. See you soon.
Is it me talking now? Okay, great. Yes, so thank you all. That was wonderful to be in those breakout rooms and to get even more information and to talk one-on-one. We cannot thank you enough. And yeah, and thank you all the students for coming, and we hope that you are inspired and will join us for more events with the Center for Leadership. So thank you all.
Thanks for having us.
For sure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Certainly was.
Thank you. Big shout out to Mark for